What I'm about to tell you will shock you because nobody talks about this with the honesty you need to hear. Women miss older men for reasons that younger men will never understand, reasons that have nothing to do with money, looks, or charm. They miss older men because of something far deeper, something invisible, something that leaves a permanent mark on their heart, and they only realize it when it's too late. Imagine this: she is surrounded by attention, messages, flattery, constant validation. She has younger men chasing her, vying for her approval, trying to impress her with noise, energy, and drama. And yet, there is one type of man she can't stop thinking about, one man who didn't chase her, one man whose calm, steady presence made her feel seen, safe, and understood without her even having to say a word. That man is unforgettable. That man is you. She misses the way you brought clarity into her chaos, the way your emotional maturity made her feel anchored, the way your consistency and patience gave her a sense of stability she had never experienced before. She misses the way you saw her, not the surface, not the performance, not the mask she showed the world, but her true self. And here's the truth nobody will tell you: when she realizes what she had, she will look for it everywhere and fail to find it because no one else can replace it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why women crave older men in a way that younger men cannot compete with, and why the absence of a man like you leaves a void that no attention, excitement, or superficial affection can ever fill. Pay attention, because the truth in this video will change the way you see yourself, your worth, and the power of the presence you carry. Stick with me until the very end. You will never hear this anywhere else, and it will leave you thinking differently about every woman who has ever left your life. Women miss older men most for one very specific reason: their presence. And when I say presence, I don't mean the kind of attention that floods her phone with messages, likes, or empty compliments. Attention is cheap, it's loud, it's demanding, it's immediate. It grabs her eye but rarely touches her soul. Presence, on the other hand, is quiet, deliberate, steady. It is an energy that lingers in the room long after you leave. It is a force that cannot be bought, faked, or replicated. And women feel it, even when they do not consciously recognize it. They may date men who chase them relentlessly, who shower them with constant validation, who talk endlessly and fill every silence with noise. But what they crave, what they truly miss, is the kind of presence that older men naturally carry. This presence is born out of experience. It is not something that comes with age alone, but with a life fully lived. The failures endured, the heartbreaks survived, the lessons learned, and the self-discipline cultivated over time. Younger men often react to situations, older men respond. Younger men try to impress, older men embody. Younger men seek validation from women. Older men are already validated by their own sense of self. And it is this inner stability, this rooted confidence, that women feel in a way they cannot with anyone else. She doesn't need you to tell her she is special, or to chase her, or to scream for her attention. She only needs to feel your grounded energy, your calm authority, and your unwavering focus. That is presence. That is what she will remember when the noise of younger men fades. Women miss older men in moments when life becomes overwhelming, when stress, uncertainty, and chaos surround them. It is in these moments that the difference between attention and presence is magnified. Attention is fleeting, easy to offer when things are light, but almost meaningless when challenges appear. Presence, however, is enduring. It is the silent support she felt without words, the sense that someone had her back without her asking. When younger men were loud, reactive, or needy, she may have tolerated it, but when she experiences true presence, she realizes the contrast, and the realization is often jarring. She remembers how safe she felt just being in the same room with you. She remembers how even your silence had weight. She remembers that your calmness, your patience, your quiet observation were not signs of disinterest, but signs of strength. That is a feeling no amount of attention can replace. Presence is also transformative. It shifts the dynamic of how she experiences herself. With younger men, she may have felt like she had to perform, to compete for attention, to seek reassurance. With an older man, she felt seen without effort, valued without having to explain herself, and understood without having to articulate every thought. Presence provides space for authenticity, for vulnerability, and for depth. Women rarely realize how much they miss this until it is gone. They may try to replicate it with someone new, but presence is not something you can force. It is a byproduct of maturity, consistency, and self-mastery. The irony is that women often do not consciously notice this presence until it is absent. They may chase excitement, novelty, and attention, but when the man who provided them true presence leaves, the void is unmistakable. They remember the way your calmness cut through their chaos. They remember how your quiet confidence anchored them when the world around them was turbulent. They remember how attention from others could never replace the stability, the respect, and the understanding you offered simply by existing as yourself. That is when they truly miss older men. So here is the truth you must hold on to: presence is your silent power. It is invisible, yet irresistible. It is unspoken, yet unforgettable. Younger men can compete for her attention with noise and spectacle, but they cannot replicate your presence. And that is why, even years later, she will think of you not because of what you said or did, but because of who you were. Because you existed fully, steadily, and with a quiet strength that demanded nothing but earned everything. And the final undeniable fact is this: presence is earned, not given. It is cultivated through discipline, through self-awareness, and through living a life where your actions, energy, and character speak louder than any words ever could. Women will miss older men most not for what they can see, but for what they can feel. And that feeling will stay with them long after you are gone. Remember this: while attention is fleeting, presence is immortal. Women miss older men because of emotional maturity, and not just the kind of maturity that shows up in polite conversation or measured behavior. I am talking about a depth of understanding, a level of self-possession that younger men rarely possess. Emotional maturity is the quiet, almost invisible force that shapes every interaction, every reaction, and every choice. It is the difference between responding and reacting, between seeing clearly and being blind to consequences. Younger men may claim to understand, may try to listen, may offer advice, but emotional maturity is not something you can imitate. It is earned through the hardships, the mistakes, the heartbreaks, and the deliberate process of reconstructing oneself after each fall. This is why women, often unknowingly, crave it, and why they remember it long after you are gone. Emotional maturity is what allows a man to be consistent when life is unpredictable. Women do not miss older men because they always said the right words or performed perfectly. They miss them because they felt secure, even when nothing else in life made sense. Emotional maturity creates a sanctuary. It is a space where a woman can exist fully, without the need to manipulate, to test, or to impress. Younger men may offer excitement, novelty, or constant stimulation, but they cannot offer the peace that comes from someone who has learned to manage himself, his emotions, and his desires. Women may not label it consciously, but they feel it. They feel it in the way you listen without judgment, in the way you speak without defensiveness, in the way your presence reassures without needing to control. Women miss older men because they offer clarity in a world full of noise. Younger men often operate from ego, impulse, or insecurity. They react to moods, chase validation, and seek to fill voids outside themselves. Emotional maturity, however, allows a man to operate from principle, from understanding, from a rooted sense of who he is. This stability does not just calm situations, it elevates the woman alongside him. She feels seen, respected, and understood, not because she demanded it, but because it is his natural approach to the world. This level of insight and control is magnetic. It is invisible yet undeniable. When it disappears, women notice not just the absence of guidance, but the absence of someone who helps them feel grounded in their own being. Another critical element is patience. Emotional maturity allows a man to wait without anxiety, to observe without judgment, and to act without haste. Women miss this because younger men often rush relationships, rush emotions, rush intimacy. They may overwhelm with constant messages, insistence, or dramatics. Older men, emotionally mature men, understand the rhythm of relationships, the ebb and flow of connection, the importance of timing. They respect boundaries, not because they are afraid of loss, but because they understand that love and trust grow over time, not under pressure. This patience communicates strength, confidence, and security, all things women notice instinctively and later long for when it is no longer present. Women also miss emotional maturity because it brings emotional safety. Emotional maturity is the ability to navigate conflict without destruction, to hold space for vulnerability without judgment, to maintain composure without disengagement. Younger men may react with anger, defensiveness, or withdrawal when challenges arise. Older men, however, can face tension, manage expectations, and remain steady. This teaches women that not all men will crumble under pressure, not all men are driven by insecurities, and not all men will force them into games of manipulation or testing. That lesson, once internalized, leaves a deep impression, and when it is gone, the absence is profound. The most powerful reason women miss older men is that emotional maturity is transformative. It changes the way she experiences herself. With a man who possesses it, she feels more complete, more authentic, and more confident in her own identity. She doesn't have to perform or pretend. She doesn't have to manipulate or seek attention to feel secure. She remembers the man who made her feel capable, valued, and understood without trying to control her. And when that man leaves, she realizes the loss not in tangible terms, but in the subtle shifts in how she experiences life and herself. So remember this: emotional maturity is not an accessory, it is the core of your magnetism. Women will miss it long before they realize why. They will search for it in others, only to find emptiness, and that is your quiet power, the quality that separates you from the noise of the world and the distractions of younger men. When you cultivate it, you do not just become desirable, you become unforgettable. Emotional maturity is not temporary, and it is not superficial. It is the silent architecture of who you are, the invisible force that shapes her memory and her longing. Women miss older men most when they recognize, often too late, that this depth, this calm, this understanding cannot be replaced, cannot be rushed, and cannot be bought. And that is the truth that will define the impact you leave long after your presence fades. Women miss older men because of the stability, clarity, and leadership they bring into a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. And when I say stability, I do not mean a bank account or material comfort. I am talking about emotional and psychological stability, the kind of steadiness that cannot be faked or purchased. Women experience this in subtle ways: the way he reacts calmly when life throws challenges, the way he makes decisions with thought rather than impulse, the way he maintains his own balance even when everything around him is unraveling. Younger men often crumble under pressure, letting stress, insecurity, or impatience dictate their behavior. Older men, however, have been tested by life and have learned to remain grounded even when the storm is raging. That presence of unwavering stability is something a woman feels in her bones, something she remembers when it is no longer there. Clarity is another aspect of what makes older men unforgettable. Women miss older men when they realize that clarity in a partner is rare. Most people navigate life distracted, reactive, or guided by emotion rather than reason. Emotional immaturity clouds judgment, clouds vision, and clouds intention. An older man, emotionally mature and experienced, sees the world with sharpness and precision. He understands priorities, he understands consequences, and he understands people. He communicates with purpose, acts with intention, and avoids unnecessary drama. Women notice this, even if they do not initially name it. They feel the difference between being with someone who drifts through life and someone who has a direction and vision. They feel the weight of his decisions, the comfort of his foresight, and the quiet assurance that comes from someone who knows where he stands. Clarity is magnetic, it is rare, and when it is absent, she notices the emptiness immediately. Leadership, in this sense, is not domination or control. It is the ability to inspire, guide, and hold space for those around him without forcing them to submit or conform. Women miss older men because they sense this strength, an inner authority that does not shout but commands respect. Leadership manifests in countless small ways: in the consistency of his routines, the way he handles setbacks, the way he manages his emotions without turning conflict into chaos, and the way he allows her to be her own person while still offering guidance. Younger men may try to lead through assertion, through pressure, or through ego, but true leadership is earned, not demanded. It is felt more than it is seen, and a woman senses immediately when a man possesses it. She misses it when it is gone, because the presence of true leadership creates safety, direction, and trust, all things that cannot be replicated by charm or superficial attention. Women miss older men most when life tests them. When a woman faces challenges, financial, emotional, or social, the contrast between younger men and older men becomes stark. Younger men may respond with panic, anger, or avoidance. Older men respond with calm analysis and strategic thinking. Women internalize this, sometimes unconsciously, and come to associate older men with security, wisdom, and reliability. It is not about controlling her or solving every problem for her. It is about the ability to stand firm, to think clearly, and to act decisively. That ability becomes a memory, a benchmark against which all other men are measured. And when she is left without it, she feels an absence that she cannot easily articulate, but it is profound. The combination of stability, clarity, and leadership also elevates the relationship itself. Women do not just feel safer, they feel inspired, challenged, and understood on a deeper level. Older men create a space where a woman can grow, explore, and become her best self, not because he demands it, but because his example sets the standard. Younger men may offer excitement, novelty, or intensity, but they rarely create an environment that fosters growth alongside stability. Women may chase thrills, but they remember transformation, calm, and guidance, the hallmarks of being with a mature man long after the excitement fades. And here is the critical truth: women do not miss older men for the superficial qualities the world often highlights. They miss the way he anchored their life, how his clarity cut through confusion, and how his leadership gave them permission to relax, trust, and be themselves. They remember the sense of safety, certainty, and direction he provided in a world that is often unsteady. When that is gone, they notice the void immediately, and the longing begins, not for a person, but for the presence and impact he had on their life. Leadership, clarity, and stability are invisible yet unforgettable. They are not advertised, they are not loud, and they cannot be feigned. Women may date younger men, they may be entertained by attention, but they miss older men when they recognize, sometimes too late, that these qualities cannot be replaced, cannot be rushed, and cannot be faked. Remember this: the stability you cultivate, the clarity you maintain, and the leadership you embody are your invisible power. Women will remember it long after other men have faded into noise. And that is the measure of the impact you leave. A presence that transforms, steadies, and endures. Women miss older men because of the way they see them, truly see them, in a way that younger men rarely can. And this is not about flattery or compliments. It is not about telling her she is beautiful or desirable. It is about perception, about understanding her essence without needing it explained, about recognizing her strengths and vulnerabilities without judgment, and about responding with insight rather than impulse. Younger men often see what they want to see. They react to appearances, to behavior that entertains them, or to signals that serve their ego. Older men see beneath that surface. They observe, they notice, and they understand. And this depth of recognition is something women feel instinctively. They may not articulate it, but it lingers in memory long after the interactions have ended. Women miss older men because they experience validation in its truest form, not validation that requires effort, performance, or manipulation, but validation that arises from being acknowledged for who they truly are. Younger men often offer attention to impress themselves or to satisfy their own needs. They chase responses, expect reciprocity, and measure value through external approval. Older men, grounded in self-possession and experience, do not require constant affirmation. Their recognition is calm, consistent, and genuine. When a woman feels this, she understands that she is not performing for his approval. She is simply being seen, accepted, and appreciated. And when that presence disappears, the absence is felt like a subtle but persistent ache, because no amount of attention from others can replicate it. Women also miss older men because they are consistent. This is a quality that younger men often cannot sustain. Inconsistency breeds doubt, confusion, and insecurity. Women may initially be drawn to the unpredictability of younger men, the excitement of emotional highs and lows, but the lasting impact comes from stability that is rooted in self-awareness and integrity. Older men offer this naturally. They show up in ways that matter, act with reliability, and maintain an inner code of conduct that does not waver based on moods or convenience. She notices this consistency on a subconscious level. It allows her to relax, to trust, and to let her guard down in ways she cannot with men who are erratic or reactive. And when that consistency is lost, she experiences the void acutely because she has tasted what it means to be fully understood without manipulation or games. Another reason women miss older men is their ability to balance engagement with space. Younger men often struggle with this. They either overwhelm, smothering her with constant demands, or withdraw, leaving her uncertain and insecure. Older men, through experience and self-mastery, navigate this balance naturally. They know when to engage and when to step back. They understand that true connection does not require control or intrusion, but respect and attentiveness. This balance communicates trust, security, and respect for boundaries. Women recognize this subtly, and it becomes one of the most powerful memories of the relationship. The absence of this understanding creates tension, confusion, and longing because it is impossible to replicate through words alone. Emotional insight is another layer. Older men recognize not just what she says, but what she feels. They read between lines, they sense unspoken tension, and they respond in ways that demonstrate awareness without needing explanation. Women often realize the impact of this emotional insight long after the fact. Younger men may hear words, but they miss context, nuance, and underlying emotion. Older men hear her voice and read her silence simultaneously. This ability to perceive deeply, to respond appropriately, and to honor her inner world is rare, and it is unforgettable. Women feel it, and when it disappears, they notice the subtle ways it once shaped their sense of being seen and valued. Women miss older men because they provide an unspoken validation of their worth. They do not react with insecurity, jealousy, or neediness. They hold themselves with dignity and act with clarity, and in doing so, they elevate the women around them. This creates a psychological space where she feels understood, appreciated, and safe to be herself. It is this rare combination of perception, insight, and constancy that younger men cannot replicate. And when it is gone, she searches for it in vain, longing for the way she was made to feel simply by being fully acknowledged. The truth is, women miss older men not for what they say, but for how they see. Not for what they provide materially, but for the rare gift of being truly recognized. This is the kind of presence, the kind of vision, and the kind of understanding that leaves a lasting imprint on her mind, heart, and soul. And when it is gone, the absence is not just felt. It resonates, teaching her that no substitute, no matter how loud or persistent, will ever replicate the depth she once experienced. Remember this: your ability to see her fully, to understand her without demanding, and to validate her without ego is your invisible power. It is rare, it is unforgettable, and it is the reason she will think of you long after others have faded into noise. This is the legacy of true presence, subtle, silent, and irreplaceable. Women miss older men most when reality hits them. And this is not a sudden, dramatic revelation. It is a slow, creeping awareness that comes from experience, reflection, and the subtle comparison of what they had with what the world now offers. Younger men may have been entertaining, flashy, or attentive, but older men leave a mark that is invisible, silent, and unforgettable. It is in the absence of that depth, that stability, that insight, and that calm authority that she begins to understand the value of what she lost. It is the quiet, cumulative realization that there are qualities in you that cannot be replaced, that cannot be rushed, and that cannot be simulated by anyone else. She misses older men when she encounters situations where she needs emotional safety but finds none. Life is unpredictable, and it often tests her patience, resilience, and judgment. In these moments, she unconsciously measures the men around her against the one who once provided unwavering support. Younger men may offer excitement, distraction, or temporary comfort, but they rarely offer the consistent, grounded reassurance that comes from experience and self-mastery. She notices the contrast not in grand gestures, but in the way people respond under pressure, in the way they manage conflict, in the way they stay composed when the world is falling apart. And in that contrast, the memory of you becomes sharp, vivid, and unavoidable. Women miss older men when they realize that most of the men they meet operate from ego, insecurity, or impulse. It is not their fault. They are simply untested, inexperienced, or immature. But this makes them ill-equipped to offer the stability, insight, and calm authority they once felt with you. She remembers how you handled situations without drama, how you maintained your composure without controlling her, and how your decisions were rooted in clarity rather than emotion. She remembers the sense of safety and trust that accompanied your presence. And when this is missing, she feels the void in ways that she cannot articulate. It is not a loss of attention or excitement. It is the loss of an anchor, a benchmark, and a standard of understanding that cannot be found elsewhere. She misses older men when she realizes that their absence exposes the superficiality of other relationships. Attention can be bought, flirtation can be performed, and words can be crafted, but presence, depth, and emotional maturity cannot. She notices it in the subtle things, how others react when challenges arise, how they handle disagreement, how they offer support without being asked. She feels the difference, and she regrets taking it for granted. That regret is often quiet, almost invisible, but it shapes her longing in profound ways. She longs for the calm authority, the quiet confidence, and the consistency that older men bring into her life. Women miss older men when they confront their own growth and self-awareness. Often, she may have sought excitement or novelty, chasing temporary thrills or distractions, only to find that those experiences leave her empty. She begins to recognize that what she truly valued was the stability, clarity, insight, and emotional safety she once had with you. This realization is subtle yet powerful. It is not a moment of nostalgia. It is an awakening. She sees now with startling clarity the difference between what was fleeting and what was enduring, between noise and presence, between attention and authenticity. And the final reason she misses older men is that they leave a standard. Not a standard imposed by control or expectation, but a standard set by example. You modeled consistency, emotional awareness, patience, and clarity. You showed her what it feels like to be truly seen, understood, and valued. That standard becomes her unconscious measure of all men she encounters afterward. Younger men may entertain, flatter, or distract, but they cannot replicate the authenticity and depth that older men naturally embody. She longs for it because she once experienced it, and she knows deep down that nothing else satisfies that need. The truth is simple but profound. Women miss older men most when they finally realize what cannot be replaced. They miss the presence that calmed them, the emotional maturity that grounded them, the stability that reassured them, and the insight that allowed them to feel seen without performance. And this realization is not just about you, it is about the standard of manhood you embody. It is about the quiet power, the enduring influence, and the unforgettable impact you leave simply by being fully yourself. Remember this, the absence of your presence is the moment she understands your value. The qualities you cultivate, the depth you maintain, and the consistency you embody are invisible, yet they are the very things that leave her longing. Women may not always say it, they may not always notice it immediately, but they feel it, and that feeling, once lost, will remind her forever of the man she could never replace.